Everybody, welcome to Deep Dive, a very special deep dive because we have Pastor Alan and Joy Clayton, Mommy and Daddy, as they're known around here. Just preached a message on relationships together. We don't do this too often.
Right.
And I think this is the first deep dive we've had
Together?
I've never done
together.
One. Yeah.
You've never done deep dive?
I've never done a deep
So
dive.
this is great.
Good.
Really enjoyed this message. I think you touched on so many different aspects of relationship and marriage. And you talked about relationships in just, I think a lot of it could be completely applicable to people who aren't in relationships.
Yes.
I am convinced of that.
Yeah.
That I said it, and I don't, it's one of those things. I was pitching them. I didn't know if they caught this one. The best time to work on your relationships is when you're not in one.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks, I'm going to work on my relationship. No, the Lord wants to work on you.
Right.
And so it's because you're the one that's going to bring you into a relationship.
Right.
So the best time, when you're not married, is the best time to work on your marriage.
And I think to unpack that a little bit more, which I really like that. I never thought about it that way, but it is true.
It is true.
It's because it's really about the better you are, the closer you are to the Lord, the better your relationship's going to be.
The more Christ-like you are, the stronger you are.
Yeah.
And the stronger you are spiritually, the better you're going to be able to navigate these pressures and pains and problems in life.
Yeah.
And so I think, people who have labeled Christianity as weak have no idea what they're talking about. It's a strong person's religion,
Yeah.
and it will work strength in you.
I think that's a great lesson for anybody. It's like it's because we have a guy who's getting married on our team. I think he was asking for advice, or maybe advice was just being given to him. But I said, you had to die to self a little bit. Like there's an element of,
True.
to be successful in a marriage, one of the things is you have to die to self a little bit. You're selfish when you're single.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're controlling your own time, you're controlling your own money.
That's the biggest relationship killer.
You don't
It's
have...
It's selfishness.
I don't have to worry. I can do whatever I want. I can go to bed at 1 o'clock. I can wake up late. I can get up early. Sometimes you wake up at 4 a.m. and then you're waking someone else up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
That can cause some problems. But I love that. I thought that was a great, how do I learn how to become less selfish now?
Yeah.
How do I learn how to be more Christ-like now?
Yeah.
How do I get stronger now? So when a relationship comes.
Yeah.
You said another great point too, and I thought this was so key, is that you cannot pin your happiness
Yeah.
to a person. How, for someone who's maybe done that in the past, how do you unpin your happiness from somebody?
It's probably more you.
I think, too, we see it with Leah where she really connects with God. But I think it's very easy to make marriage I'll be happy if you could just do something with my marriage, or that I would get married, or my children. And so we don't even realize that we have these, I guess you could call them their
Almost
idols.
like an idol. Yeah.
And so we're not really connected to God as much as, and even our prayers go that way. My marriage, or my children. And it's like, Lord, I love you, I praise you, and can that be enough for me?
Yeah.
Because then He is enough, the God who's more enough, actually fills us in a place. I think it's so interesting because Rachel looks like she has everything. She has every bit of favor, and yet she's really, really unhappy.
Yeah.
The names of her children are like, I've been judged, my cause is judged, I wrestled with my sister and won.
Wrestled with my sister and won. This girl...
That's a name of Naphtali.
It's really not a good look for her because she's
No.
highly favored. She's supposedly very pretty.
She's good looking.
Yeah.
She's a looker.
And she
Yeah.
is so obsessed with her sister.
Yeah.
You know what? One of the problems is, Matt, and this is so true. It's like my friend Joe Monsterhouse said. Sometimes people who are entitled, it doesn't breed gratitude. People who are pampered.
Yeah.
And so sometimes if the child is a favored child, that they're the good-looking child, they're the ones that get all the favor, they're not grateful. They're entitled. They expect everything and everyone to work out well. In fact, the Navy SEALs will tell you that it's not the straight A guys and the school presidents and the incredible jocks in high school who make the Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
That it's the guys who just learned to grind and who just learned that they weren't expecting.
Nothing comes easy.
Nothing comes easy. They weren't expecting. They weren't the ones that people thought of as. And I'm sure there's exceptions, but they're saying a lot of times these high school jocks never did well.
Yeah, it's not about being strong or smart. It's just about being tough.
Well, and being willing to stay in there. And I think sometimes someone like a Rachel was probably always favored, and she was, I mean, her dad had to work a deal to get Leah married.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Which
so
you didn't go into, but
Leah.
he was tricked.
He was
Yes,
tricked.
he was.
Jacob
He was
was
deceived.
tricked
yeah,
into marrying her.
It was almost a shotgun wedding.
And I'm sure Leah had no choice in that. So she's like, great. I mean, you have to fool someone to marry. And could you imagine when he wakes up the next morning and goes, oh, no, who are you?
So you were
I don't know how he worked that whole deal out, but that brother needs
Rejection on such a huge
But the
scale.
fraud, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, your marriage was kind of a fraud. Your dad pawned you off. Your sister is highly favored.
Yeah.
That's a difficult situation.
And
if
then
you're
your
looking-
sister is envious of you.
Yeah. And
And
your
you're
sister's
like-
wrestling with you. That's her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wrestled with my sister.
I wrestled with, and then when she has Joseph, she's like, I'm going to have another son, and her last son is son of my sorrow.
Her dad. Yeah. Jacob
So-
renames him.
Was that Benjamin?
Benjamin. Yeah. Jacob
Yeah,
renamed
so
him.
Jacob
she's-
renamed him?
He
Yeah,
renamed him
because
son of
she-
my sorrow. It was something, a name that, and he renamed him son of my right hand or something. Yeah.
Son of my
Oh,
right hand,
wow.
because
Yeah.
she had so much sorrow. The very thing she wanted, actually,
Killed
it
her.
didn't make her. It didn't make her.
Actually, she died in childbirth.
Yeah.
Did she?
Yes, she
She
did.
did. She died in childbirth.
Not that I'm smiling at that, but what was fascinating is the biggest idol in her life wound up taking her down.
Wow.
children.
That's an interesting, I think, because idols, not something you were talking about relationship, but I think it's so easy for people to make idols out of things that are good.
Totally.
Yeah.
Marriage is a good thing.
Totally.
So there's almost this idea of like, I can make this an idol because God says if I found a wife, I found a good thing. Marriage is good. We know it's holy.
Totally.
I think people make idols out of children and
Oh, yeah.
family. And you say,
yeah.
well, family comes first. Family first. I got,
But
I had to
what's
do this.
interesting, Matt, is when we get to heaven, evidently the marriages aren't acknowledged
Yeah.
in heaven. Because remember, they said they'll be like angels
Yeah.
in heaven, or neither Jesus said.
Yeah.
Because remember, they were having the big question about the
Who-
7 brothers
who's
who
married?
had one wife and
Yes.
nobody had kids, and they kept passing this
Yeah.
poor woman down.
Yes.
Finally, she dies, and in heaven, whose
husband, whose wife she
who's
gonna be?
married to her? And Jesus went, y'all are dumb.
And that was the Sadducees that added that one.
Yes, who don't believe in the resurrection.
Don't believe in resurrection.
Yeah, but they were trying to trick him with that, and he said, no. He said, you don't know the scriptures, you don't know the power of God. They're not going to be married. And so, people make it such an idol down here, and the people, I work on my marriage. No one's going to like this next statement. If you want to work on your marriage, work on you. Now, I realize there's problems, and I realize there's abuse and abandonment and adultery, and I know that. Right. And but I'm just saying for the average couple, I'm not talking about somebody that's been, if my daughter was in an abusive situation, I'd tell her to get out,
Yeah.
not be physically abused. And if she was abandoned by her husband, I'd go get her.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about dealing with life.
Right.
And so often, people are like, I got to fix them and fix them. Work on you. I can't control her.
Yeah.
I can't control her.
But
She can't control me.
But you can focus on what you put your focus on. And
Yeah.
I think if people are focusing on the wrong or idolizing
Yeah.
elements, you can idolize friendships and children and idolize relationships, then you can end up missing God the whole
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Well, you see people work on their marriage, and God restores their marriage, and then they fall off the table. And it's like, we need something bigger than just our marriage. We need good marriages.
Right.
But have you ever noticed how much the Bible doesn't specifically address it?
Right.
And so what the Bible specifically addresses is our Christian character, who we are.
Right.
And so the thing is grow in Christ,
Yeah.
and that's going to fix marriages.
Yep.
And there's still some great things you can learn, but that's what I hope people got out of today. I can have a relationship with the Lord. If I have a stronger relationship with the Lord, that's going to make me stronger on the inside. Because you can get all your marriage things fixed, and you're still going to have problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like that. I think that's a point that you have. It's like, no matter what's going on in your life, you can always be closer to the Lord. You can be as close to God as you want to be.
Yeah.
It's not dependent on your outward circumstances. It's not dependent on how smart or how,
Right.
how attractive you are. Everybody can be close to the Lord.
And what a blessing. It's not like they're the haves and the have-nots.
Such a freedom.
Yeah, it's you have you have a choice. And Joy and I mean, people laughed and we laughed about it, but our early years were hard.
Right.
But we had a lot of problems and a lot of pressure. And it's, we didn't talk about it, but I know the enemy was trying to do everything he could to dissolve the union before it got going.
Did you made a great statement about 3 cords are not easily broken when we prayed he didn't.
Yeah.
During those tough times, how did you recognize the ploys of the enemy, or how did you begin to focus on Jesus, even in the middle of all that pressure and all that, fighting and everything like that? How did that look like on a practical level?
Do you remember what we'd used to do is we'd have a big argument, and then often we knew the Lord, so we'd sit down and start to go, but God was good to us here. We believe he did this, and we'd start to recount where God was in our relationship, and we'd get real tender. And again, that gratefulness kind of pulled us out of the problem. And it was, I think what's interesting is if it's the problem that's really what's causing us to, have an argument or whatever, maybe it's not the person. Because sometimes it's like, it's you. If you were different, if I was different. But what if it's handling the problem? Then it's like, maybe our marriage isn't doomed.
Or
Maybe that
someone's
person.
personal pain that other person is not fixing.
Yeah.
And so we never once, Joy and I always believed that we married the right person.
Yeah.
We always believed that we married in the will of God. Now, here's another thing we didn't go into today, and I don't ever want to condemn people with this, but we did not talk divorce.
No, we didn't.
I bet you we have mentioned that word in our marriage. I can count it on one hand, less than 5 times.
Yeah.
So we never looked at one another and said, we just need to give this up.
We were a little competitive, though. We're like, I am not going to quit.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to quit either. I'm like, okay.
The competitive
well, then
nature in
fight.
both of us are like, I'm not quitting.
But you were saying
I'm not leaving. You can leave, but I'm not leaving.
You're saying too, pain and problems sometimes come into marriage and pressure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to point the finger
At the person.
at your spouse.
That's what Rachel did.
Exactly.
She looks at, look, give me children. He's like, whoa.
And she never brings God in at all. We have no record that Rachel reaches out to God at all.
And you said something that was really good, that pain, pressure, and problems will be in every single relationship.
Absolutely.
But if you're pointing at each other the whole entire time, but not pointing at the problem, which honestly is oftentimes like, let's go after the pain.
Yeah.
Let's go after, hey, we need healing for your depression. We
Yes.
need healing for
Right.
pain in
Yes.
my life.
Yes.
How did that look like? Like addressing the problems and not addressing each other?
I think it was more a function of Joy had a relationship with the Lord. I had a relationship with the
Yeah.
Lord. And there were times, and we didn't go into it today, but there were times that Joy would say, Lord, I can't talk to him. He's not listening to me. You talk to him.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was praying, this is what I said at the end, and I don't know if people caught this. I hope they did. We're not special,
No, I love that.
but
You're
we're committed.
Yeah.
And we were both committed to the Lord. So we were both praying. We were both
Yes.
reading. We were
During
both.
this time, you were in church. How often?
All the time.
I mean, especially in the
all
beginning of
the
your marriage.
time.
I mean,
1,
you
2,
were in
3,
church.
4,
How many
4
times
times
were
a
you in
week.
church?
Bible school, and then after that, we were always involved in church.
Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday night, Sunday
Sunday.
morning,
We raised
Sunday night.
we raised you guys. I mean,
You
Lakewood
were
was Sunday
volunteer-
morning, Sunday night.
We were
You were
volunteering.
volunteering.
We
So
were-
the whole entire time, even in the middle of the
Yeah.
beginning years, where all this pressure, all these problems,
Yeah.
we're still hooked up.
you were in church constantly.
Yep. And I promise you that helped. John and Dodie Osteen were a huge blessing to us
Yes.
because Joy had never seen a strong Christian couple. What does a strong Christian couple look like? And so that was a model for us.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that we still stand up there today and talk
Yes.
every Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the reasons we wanted to do this together.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to talk her into doing it. I like her perspective. I like what she brings to the table.
Well, I think it's great having both perspectives because I think you both came from different backgrounds and
Right.
both had different feelings and emotions to have.
And
this
so it's
sometimes.
not just a guy telling
women
women about
that-
how they need
No.
to be dealing with stuff.
We could go so deep into this.
I
don't
know
want
it.
to go too long, but
Okay.
I want to hit one last thing. You talked about both bringing both your cultures into your relationship.
Yes.
How did you start to recognize that it was your culture? So, Mom, you grew up in the Italian
Matriarchal.
matriarchal.
Right.
You grew up in the Southern Baptist.
Father knows best.
Yes.
A dominant father.
Dominant father.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did you recognize that this is some cultural issues that we have,
Mm-hmm.
and then address those and relate?
I think because we were reading the scriptures, we began to look at things scripturally. And so the scriptures kind of overpowered the cultural.
Yeah, I agree.
Where it was like, I didn't even realize I was so cultural in some things. And I was like, but the scriptures say that the man is the head of the house. And too, I found that if I would pray, sometimes the Lord would speak to him exactly, and he would come back to me and apologize. And I'm like, no one would know, God, that I prayed that exact thing.
Yeah,
And he
so-
came back
But
to me.
here, both of us were praying.
Yeah.
So both of us were praying.
And
Yeah.
you're both seeking to hear from the Lord.
Yes.
Both seeking the Lord.
Both
That's what I'm
volunteering,
saying. We're
both in
both.
church.
That's why.
Yes.
That's why I may have said it first service. If you've got two people who are committed to the Lord, you
Yeah.
have a really good chance of having that thing work.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
Because He's not going to encourage you to leave each other,
No.
and He will work on me and things I need to do. Another thing, and we'll have to do this another time. But my willingness to apologize
Oh,
was
huge.
a marriage saver.
He apologized all the time.
That's a relationship saver, I think, because you were great at apologizing.
Right.
Always, even to kids,
Always.
even
Right.
to us as children.
Right.
If you made a mistake, you would come back and apologize. And as a kid, that made impacts on us.
You know what I wish I would have done though? I wish I would have said, I forgive you. Because I think that I'm sorry and I forgive you are two huge components in any relationship.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think marriage,
If
friendships.
you're holding unforgiveness in a
Yeah.
relationship, it's going to be really hard to bring healing.
It's like sandpaper in a relationship. It is really going to rub wrong.
And there were some times that he said, I'm sorry. And I was like, you should be sorry. Instead of, I forgive you. I'm glad you finally.
You did not. You did not. I don't think you held on to things.
Oh,
think
I
you-
did, honey.
Well,
I
yeah,
did.
actually,
I
you did. Yeah,
I did.
Do you
she would
think?
get historical.
Do you
know.
think? Not hysterical.
No, historical. Yeah.
Do you think that asking for forgiveness and asking forgiveness and then giving forgiveness are two of the largest acts of humility you can do?
Yes.
I don't know if it's the largest, but I know it's important.
Definitely one of them.
Because to
I know-
say I'm wrong, I'm sorry is
I'm
a
sorry.
huge step of humility.
Well, and a lot of people have a hard time with that, and that was probably my saving grace that kept us in a relationship.
But he never said, I'm sorry, but you know what I really meant was,
Yeah.
he never did that. He would say, I'm sorry, and he would stop
End it.
there. And, and I didn't say, I forgive you. I wish I would have put that in there because I think forgiveness and apologizing, repenting are
Their
powerful.
They are. It's like greasing the relationship skids.
Oh, yeah.
If you know that your spouse will hear from the Lord, will pray,
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
apologize, will make heart adjustments,
Yeah.
that gives hope to any relationship.
yeah.
Two people committed to
Yeah.
the Lord can make any marriage work.
But doesn't it say this too, that marriage is like Christ and the church?
Yeah.
And we also need to be people that repent and receive his forgiveness. So it models exactly what marriage should model.
That'd be an interesting study, is like the relationship between Christ and the church.
Yeah.
Marriage relationships.
The next one, huh?
Yeah.
True.
So I definitely think we go much farther
Yeah, we could
into relationships.
deep dive into
I
this
think
one for sure.
especially with me, the 40-year-old headache being
No, head cold.
Head cold.
Head cold.
The head cold.
40-year-old head cold.
Yeah,
I had a first.
Okay.
I had a first row seat, front row seat.
So after I found out that I was pregnant, I went to the doctor and I was like, I still wasn't, I was like, I have a head cold.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going to do a whole series of tests. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to find out. It's just sinus infection. He's like, you're pregnant. I was like,
You cried.
possibly be.
Both of you cried, right?
No, I went and took a walk.
Went to walk.
I went and took a long walk. Walked around some beautiful hills around Tulsa where we were living at the time. I went and took a walk, and I remember telling the Lord, I said, this was not my idea. I said, this was
And that's
all-
why your name is Matthew, a
Matthew,
gift.
a gift.
Gifts. A
That
surprise
overtook
gift
I
us.
from the Lord.
is there such thing as a surprise gift? But we just stuck
Well, I'm
with
glad you didn't
stuck
name
with
me
gift.
son of my sorrow,
Son of my
which is probably be more apt at the time.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So
That's
I'm
funny.
glad that you
But
named
you know,
me right.
honestly, that added so much to the pressure. I didn't even go into the fact, but we didn't have insurance. We didn't have money. I think we just recently paid you off. 'Cause
No.
I think we did.
It did take us years.
It took us years.
We paid $10 to one doctor, and then we had to pay the hospital, and that's why we're like, okay, just, we
So
got to
not
get
only
him.
was I a financial blessing, I was
You were a
also
financial burden.
It's a good thing you laughed a lot.
you
laughed.
did.
He laughed a lot
Son-
And we didn't even go into the fact that he was colicky and cried
and threw up
just,
everywhere.
I was a
just-
very difficult baby.
You,
I was a difficult child.
you were a great kid. You had a great temperament,
And you
but you were in
laughed.
pain all the time until you cried all the time. It's horrible.
So we drive to the
We
edge
drove
of
all over
Oklahoma,
northeastern
2 hours,
Oklahoma,
and we drive 2 hours
you
back
quiet.
just to keep you okay.
Yeah, that's our peace.
Yeah, well, the Lord paid me back because I had a daughter who was colicky as well.
Was that Grace?
Kylie.
Kylie was Grace.
Kylie was
She used to
colicky.
throw up after every single meal when
Yes,
she was a
she
baby.
did.
We had concrete floors and it just splattered all over.
We had carpet. It was worse.
It was stinky.
Oh my
It's like, okay,
gosh.
we got to clean up at 3 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
that we should be done with that.
I should wrap this. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for joining us for Deep Dive, ending on a happy
On a
note.
very deep dive.
Yes,
That's
very
good.
deep dive. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys soon.
Bye-bye.